All right, my friends, and welcome once again to another episode here of the Red Delta Project podcast, helping you to be fit and live free by taking a fundamental approach to diet and exercise. As always, I'm Matt Schifferly, and today we have got the man. We have Zach Even-Esh here, one of the OGs of the Red Delta Project. To basically put it into simple terms, without Zach, there would be no RDP. And I'm thrilled to have him here because he's got this great, awesome, wonderful new book out there called Iron Journeys, 5 Powerful Lessons to Unleash Your True Potential in Life. No matter what game you're in, whether it's calisthenics, bands, just lifting rocks in the middle of the woods, you need to read this book, because when it comes down to getting the true essence of effective training of mind, body, and lifestyle, takes a hell of a lot more than just weight and reps, and Zach knows that better than anybody. So I'm going to turn right on over. Zach, thank you so much, and welcome to the RDP podcast.
Hey, brother. So great to be here. You know, of course, I see the mountain bikes in the back. I remember our early conversations. Did we meet before 2010? Was it like 08, 09?
Yeah, probably around 08. That sounds about right. First time I ever ran into you was at a Ryan Lee conference.
Oh, wow.
It was one of those where he was having people up on stage, and there were like mastermind groups that he was doing. And that was the first time I ever came across you like in person. I think I was subscribed to your newsletter before that. And just everything about your attitudes and your presence of how you taught people was just so over the top from everyone else there. And ever since then, I have been following you, and you've been a true mentor to me.
Love it, man. I remember you came to the first ever one-day certification for the Underground Strength Coach cert. Remember, you were recording, like during like a break after the first workout. I think using a flip cam back then.
Yeah.
Yes. Nobody. Yeah. You got to be. You know, if you don't know what a flip cam is. It was basically like it looked like the size of an iPhone, had a little tripod. You would hold it and then plug it into your computer to upload it. That's how, that's why when you look at my old YouTube videos, they've got that kind of blur to them because the technology was pretty bad back then.
Yeah, it was. It wasn't very good. I think 720p was considered high definition back then.
Yep.
But yeah, you've been basically in the back of my mind all this time. I mean, essentially too, there would be no RDP. And I mean that because everything that was built off of the whole approach that I use in my business, my fitness and everything is based on the framework of the Underground Strength certifications and the books that I've read of yours and everything. Everything was based off of that with modifications and tweaks here and there. But it's been a hell of a journey. And honestly, it's long overdue to have you on this podcast because you've been there every step of the way.
Yeah, it's been, cool. I came across a lot of your Bodyweight videos. And so I remember you had attended a Dragon Door seminar. Was it the Naked Warrior or the Convict Conditioning? What was it?
Yeah, so that was I went to the first PCC, the Progressive Calisthenics Challenge they had in Minneapolis. That was the first one that they hosted, and there were a lot of people there. There were like 70 or 80 people at that first one. It was huge. And then several years later, they came out with the SCC, which was kind of the more condensed version. And I attended the first one of those as well. And that was very much a game changer as well for the direction of my career. I mean, I even work at basically a PCC gym right now. Which it's just, and everything came from Convict Conditioning, which again, you were sending out in your emails saying, yeah, you guys check this book out. And I'm like, oh, okay, fine. And
what's crazy too is they sent me, an early edition, a preview edition, and I loved it. I always loved bodyweight training. And when I read that book, I always enjoyed kind of any book. I enjoy the stories behind why somebody's doing something. So why are you doing all these push-ups, or why did you turn bodyweight training into a strength focused versus, a high repetition focus? So those stories were great. And what's crazy is I had done reviews of the book and I was like, who knows if Paul Wade is real? And I said, I I honestly don't care if he's fiction or nonfiction. And John Duquesne sent my Encyclopedia of Underground Strength to him, and he emailed me. And, whatever his email was, but he signed off as Paul Wade. Maybe that's a moniker, a fake name, but the guy who wrote the book is out there. So it wasn't, maybe he was in that prison. I really don't know. But when you came to the cert, I believe you were in New Hampshire, maybe Vermont. I can't remember. And then where are you now? Colorado or back on the East Coast?
Yeah, I'm bouncing all over the place. I was in Vermont, living in Vermont when I went to the first certification. And then you had your level 2. And for that one, we literally, my partner and I, we moved to Colorado, literally arrived in Denver, unpacked the truck, and then I immediately drove to the airport and flew back to the East Coast to New Jersey for the level 2. So we just crisscrossed the country twice in like 2 days.
So, well, that's great, the adventure behind it. And, I wonder if, I remember we called you Quadzilla at the first cert because we were like, Jesus Christ, your legs, your calves. You're like, well, I do all this mountain biking. And, mountain biking in New Jersey is different than mountain biking in Vermont. I've spent some time in Vermont at Joe DeSena's place, and his backyard backs up to a mountain. He's like right down the road from Killington. And I saw, I hiked that mountain, but I see guys biking it. And it is like going down is death defying and going up is like hell. I would say, like, if you want great downhill, you need to go through hell and pedal uphill. That's the only way it's happening.
Yep. And now, yeah, I'm out here in Colorado. And so things are even more literally and figuratively elevated because we got the altitude and I'm right up against the Rocky Mountains. So nothing you do is flat. It's either straight up or straight down the entire time.
What's that area considered, Matt? Is it Denver?
Yeah. So I'm in Metro Denver right here. And when you go west and you hit the first bumps, they don't really call that the Rockies. They call that the foothills or the Front Range.
Right.
And those are, on the East Coast, we'd call them mountains, but here they're just hills. And they go up to about 7,000 feet or so in elevation. But then you go even a little further out, and that's when you hit the Rockies, and you're well above 10,000, 11,000 feet for a lot of that. And that altitude hits you pretty hard and fast when you're riding at that type of height.
The Olympic Training Center is out there. So I see a lot of the wrestlers, even the college guys, they go out there and they do that Manitou Manitou. What's that called? The Manitou?
Yep, Manitou, the Manitou incline, 2,000 feet straight up.
What's your best time on that?
I did, because when I first moved to Colorado, I actually lived 5 minutes from the incline. And so I did it on a weekly basis. And I think I got just a smidge over 40 minutes going up it. I think it was like 42 and change that I was able to get up it.
I'm going to put you in touch with a friend of mine who lives near there. So are you kind of close to that still, or no? Not
anymore. It's a good hour-and-a-half drive now to get there. But we've got something even better. If you ever come out to Denver, I got to show you this place. So halfway between here and Manitou Springs, because Manitou Springs, the incline gets all the credit. It's big, it's hard, but it's also now pretty touristy. Yeah. It's pay for parking and all this stuff. But we've got a place down in Castle Rock, which is halfway the distance to get there, and called Philip S. Morris Park. And they have what they call the mini incline. And the mini incline is literally 1/10 of the height. It's 200 steps instead of 2,000. But it's still this progressive, steep incline that you go up. And it's fun watching people do it the first time because they all like truck and they're running up it like, yeah, I'm going to. And then they get about halfway and they start going slower. And then about 2/3 of the way, you just see them hang their head and they just can't take another step because your legs turn to lead like that. And by the time you get to the top, you feel like your heart's going to explode. And that's a lot more fun, in my opinion, because you can sprint it.
You could sprint. It's you got to be, when you do it on the regular, like Joe DeSena, when he lived in Vermont, outside of the times that he would travel for business, he would start the day with a mountain, And then he would always finish the day like at 4 p.m. before it would get dark. And when I was there a while ago, we did a wrestling camp there. And his son got off the school bus and was going up the hill immediately. And it was just so natural for them to walk up. And I was like, it's like anything else. If you train it on the regular, it just becomes easy. So Joe, I remember we actually did a strength coach mastermind out there. And, Joe kicks everybody's butt. That's like any meeting with Joe involves him trying to like make you quit and like just. And he grabbed lunch from the general store. It was a hamburger with just a piece of lettuce. He put it in a bag and just kind of nonchalantly held on to it. Everybody else is like clawing their way up the mountain. And we're like 10 minutes behind. And Joe is not even sweating. And we're halfway up. He sees a tree. He sits down, eats, and continues to go. Like the intense activity didn't disturb his body, his appetite. It was so impressive. But I have a friend who I think is near the Manitou incline. I'm going to put you guys in touch. And he's a great guy, Joe Hashi, but he's always doing kind of like physical challenges. I don't know if hopefully I don't regret the introduction, because he's almost like a Joe DeSena. He ropes you into doing crazy activities. And it could, I'm afraid that, Matt, you're going to reach out to me and be like, Doc, I thought I was just meeting Joe for a cup of coffee. And before I knew it, we were climbing mountains for 8 hours. So, I'm going to introduce you, but there's a little warning that, feel free to be like, I'm busy. Well,
oh, man. I relish that sort of thing, though, because it's always important to get around people that expose you to new ways of pushing yourself. Not just pushing yourself in general, but just different ways of perceiving what you're doing. Because it's so easy to get stuck in a rut of, this is just the way it's done, or this is the way I've always done it kind of stuff. And there are so many great ways to get strong and so many ways to challenge yourself. And if we just stay in our own little zone of what we know and feel comfortable with, we just never experience those sorts of things.
I did a podcast with Spartan Up, and they had a retired Army colonel, Colonel Nye. He said, comfort is a cage. You encage yourself, but you're comfortable in it. You're like, yeah. And they say exactly what you said. Well, this is what I've always done. And you don't just hear adults saying that. You'll hear like a 16-year-old say something like that. And I'm like, always what? You're 16. Like, how much experience do you have in training? Little things like, so I train at this high school, about 200 athletes a day. I'll sometimes have a freshman say, oh, I always did it this way. And it's like, bro, you're 14 or 15. It's like I'm almost dumbfounded at what to say, at these things. You have to try different things, even if you're not an athlete, because that's the ultimate form of training for life. Because when we get injured doing things, we're often getting injured, not always, but often we get injured doing something that's a little bit out of our, normal realm of movement. So this is why I also encourage full range of motion exercises. So if I notice an athlete is regularly not squatting deep, I let them know, listen, when you play football or soccer or wrestling, when you get put into like a deep stretch, or maybe what your body views as a precarious position, you're not only going to physically kind of fold, but emotionally and psychologically, you'll get scared and you'll want to quit in the moment. And so that's where a lot of those early days underground strength training, those methods were very beneficial for football and wrestling, because they were getting put in precarious positions. But we were doing things like picking up sandbags, getting very low, but crouching to one side on the lap, crouching this way, that way, carrying different objects. And that's why I always say, if I lived in a place like just now, it was raining, torrential downpour, if I could, like Southern California that doesn't really get much rain, I would want to have the gym outside. So I would want the sun, the natural air, the natural lighting. I wouldn't just want weights. I'd want old playground equipment like parallel bars, like what you see in like I've seen it on the beaches of Brazil. You see old Russian playgrounds that basically look like gymnastics setups, but they're outdoor playgrounds. Bars like what you have behind you. Is that a pull-up bar with the ladder?
Yeah, so this is a new unit that hasn't quite come out yet. A buddy of mine up in Boulder builds his own equipment, and when I got to this new place, I moved here a few months ago, and I've got the Bodyweight Master from Dragon Door, and there's no room for it here. So he's like, "Oh, I've got something for you. I'll send it to you." So this is called a Dash, and that's the model name. But basically, it's a very narrow stall bar with a big outrigged pull-up bar that you can use. It takes up no room. But yeah, it's a great little piece for a small apartment like this.
Yeah. What do you attach band? It looks like you have bands behind it, Matt.
Yep. So I've got some suspension straps. You've got bands that you can attach to it, some isometric straps as well. It's basically one of these simple devices that it doesn't even have any adjustments or anything, but it just has all these points that you can grab and you can pull and you can twist and you can attach things to it. So simple yet versatile is the way that sucker works, just like a lot of basic old school strength equipment.
Exactly. So would you have to make sure you just drilled it into the beams?
Oh man, that was a total circus trying to get this thing installed, because the way it's designed is to fit onto 16-inch wooden studs.
Yep.
But this is a very new apartment complex, so they don't have any wood in the walls. It's all metal. So I had to make like 5 trips to the Home Depot, basically showing them pictures of what I had. And I was like, how in the world do I make this thing work on drywall? And I've got about 16 anchors, just drywall anchors, where it pulls on to anchor to it. And it's sturdy, but it was not a conventional setup.
What you could have done is actually taken like 2x4s and connected them to the, like what you said, there's like steel behind it, the frame. Yeah. I'm not a handy guy, but it's like interesting now with like new construction, things are changing, and also like their inability to get wood. And everything's it's interesting how expensive things have gotten. But I'm looking at that thing and I'm like, okay, I would do pull-ups. You know what exercise I love? A body weight skull crusher.
Yeah.
Love that. I do it with rings because I could kind of walk them in and out. But I don't know if you've ever noticed, but in my gym, not the first one you're at, but the one like I've had for about 10 and a half years.
There in Manasquan?
Yep. We have stall bars. And what I did was I sent screenshots. You know that Polish weightlifting video on YouTube?
Oh God, I've watched a bunch. What one are you talking about, where they're working on the playground equipment, or?
It's a black and white video, and it's Polish weightlifters. It begins with them like training outside, like cross-country skiing, jumping over stuff. But long story short, I sent him a video clip where they're training in a like gymnastics room, and they had stall bars. And I said, can you build this for me, steel? And then I would like install it. I was going to put it in my Edison gym. And because I was always so into bodyweight training, but I was like, man, if I put it here and we get busy, then I'm not going to have, it was going to kind of be out like a rack. So so he made, now they sell them, but I was like the first like model of it, kind of, just like an experiment. So we have it where I could, do those exercises with hand, or I've got rings attached, and I did like, I took like little parts of like strap connectors that you would maybe like connect to like a grip, something for grip. But then I put different pull-up bar attachments on there. I'm a big fan of like thick grip stuff, but we have a lot of middle school kids, and sometimes their hands are too small for like something that's 2 inches. But I think for adult men who have, I'd say, you know, an average level of strength, like you could do 10 pull-ups. That's probably not considered average nowadays. I think
No.
that's considered like quite advanced. But if you could do 10 pull-ups, I would start doing thick grip stuff. So on your pull-up bar, I would probably use the fat grips. Although the fat grips is they roll, they slide. But you know what I might do? I'm just like thinking already.
Yeah. You're like me. You're like, what can I do with this? Let's
get I would make like a pipe, or I would get actually PVC, Matt. You could get PVC, and 2-inch, and just slide it over those outside handles. See, let me know if you could. I know you could do it. That would be very difficult. So I'm
going to the hardware store right after this. You got it. That's a great idea because it's got the rotation. But the thing with PVC that's great that I've done, because I've made all sorts of my own grips with it, is if you take a like PVC, the problem with PVC is that, of course, it has a slick surface. So if you're sweaty, it doesn't adhere chalk very well. So what you do is you take a razor blade, and you got to be careful, and you take the tip of the razor blade and you score it down the length of the handle. And when you do that, it creates an ever so slight ridge right where the blade makes contact with it. And you do that all the way around, and it gets a nice, like almost a knurled grip in the PVC that you can use.
And then a buddy of mine, he's been making equipment for me for a while. He's making new squat racks for a high school, Dean at Black Widow Training Gear. Dean loves to do custom stuff. So you could tell Dean, hey, I've got a pull-up bar. It looks like the diameter of that is 1 inch. Dean, make me a 2-inch, you know, grippy pipe with knurling that I could slide over the 1 inch. So he'd have to bore out the middle, but you knurled slide on thick grip attachments, so to speak.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, I'm totally doing that.
I'm kind of jealous because I can't do that anywhere. Like I have nowhere to, like, that has the open end on each side. And I saw on Instagram a college football team training. Where the heck were they? I think it was Naval Academy. And they have off the squat rack the neutral grip and overhand grip. I don't know if they made every pull-up bar this way, but they were fat. They were probably 2-inch in diameter.
Cool.
Or it was Naval Academy.
Yeah. Oh, those are a lot of fun. I don't know if you've ever seen pull-up bars with like a ball, like a sphere on them.
Yeah.
And the complex here, this is a very new modern complex. They've got a very, very nice gym downstairs, which is why my friends were like, why are you installing that thing when you've got that kick-ass gym downstairs? I'm like, oh, I want something literally where I can use it where I live. But they've got a lot of those types of grips, the balls that you can grab onto.
In the gym of your apartment or condo area?
Yeah, I got to show you a video of this place. I mean, the gym itself sold me on this. It was like, oh my gosh, this is a gym I would legitimately like have a membership to. It's not like they...
I've heard that fitness is like very, it's just like the normal thing in Colorado. People are biking, running, outdoors a lot. Looks like you have more than one bike. You got a mountain bike. What do you have, a road bike too? Yeah, I used to have 3. Oh my gosh. When I moved here, within 1 week of moving to this complex, I had 2 of my 3 bikes stolen. And yeah, it was a rough week. You don't have cameras or anything like that?
So yeah, I mean, because they have a bike locker here, and it's a small apartment. So I was originally like, where the heck do I put my 3 bikes? And they're like, oh, we got a bike locker. I'm like, great. And this place is locked down like Fort Knox. Every door in the entire complex has a Bluetooth keypad that you have to unlock with your phone. I have to go through 3 locks just to get to my apartment. It's crazy. So I'm like, okay, this is secure. And within a week, 2 bikes were gone. So
it's got to be somebody in the complex, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm figuring. Unfortunately, that's the thing out here in Denver, though, is Denver is a space where there's a lot of interest in fitness. There's also a lot of money out here. So high-end bikes are everywhere. I mean, you know, I've got friends who wouldn't bat an eye at spending $10,000, $12,000 on a mountain bike. And
air tag your bikes, you know, those tags.
Yeah.
And then
now
he just shows up in front of somebody's house. Hey guys, I think you accidentally took my bike. It accidentally you accidentally started pedaling away. Accidents happen.
Yep. Sorry. But yeah, so that bike there, the red one, that's only about a month old. I got that a month ago from the insurance and everything. But I used to have 3, but long story short, you mentioned 2. So I got a road bike up there, I got the mountain bike, and I still need to get my commuter bike back. So usually I have 3, 1 for road, mountain, and 1 to just ride to work.
Yeah. Heartbreaking to hear that people's, you know, adults take things that aren't theirs. You know, I had my bike stolen in 3rd grade and it still scars me to this day. And yeah, it stinks. Yeah,
I know. It's just, you know, you get those like, God, just leave me in a locked room alone with them for 5 minutes kind of thing. It pisses you off because, you know, it's not just that something of yours is getting taken, but, you know, bikes are, you know, part of just my livelihood. It'd be one thing if someone stole my phone or, you know, or even my car to a degree, because it's like, yeah, it's my car, it's a tool and stuff. But bikes for me have always been part of like who I am. It's what I do. And you take my bikes, it's like taking away my dog kind of thing. It's like this is part of me.
Interesting that somebody local would do it. My son got his bike stolen a couple of years ago. I don't know how long ago, 3 years ago. He got picked up from school early on a Friday. So he left his bike at school. And we're in a very like bubble type town. He didn't lock it up, even though he had a bike lock on there. Mm-hmm. So Saturday morning, he wants to go out and meet his friends. He realizes the bike's not in the garage. He's like, oh shit, it's at the school. And I was like, you better hope that bike is there. We get there, of course, it's gone. He's, you know, doesn't know what to do. He's, you know, all heartbroken. I start looking on Facebook Marketplace to see if anybody's selling it. And I think, like, you know, there's some transient people that might come through town. They could have just grabbed his bike and hopped on a bus. And then they're like living, you know, 3, 4, 5 towns over. So we never got that bike back. But my wife made me buy him a new bike the next day because I pulled kids over and made them flip the bikes over while I checked the, you know, he's like, you're going to get us or you're going to get arrested. You're crazy. So I was like, I am crazy.
Oh, man.
Yeah, no secret there. But she was afraid I was going to get sued for like force, you know, serial check, turn your bike
interrogation of children on the playground.
I'm interrogating teenagers. Kid was like, oh, I don't know, you know.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm saying, like very much like you said, it's a strange world, like people taking what's not theirs. That's, you know, that's also what probably like inspired me earlier strength training is, you know, my bike was stolen. I always said, man, if I was stronger and was bigger, those kids never would have taken my bike.
Yeah, because they literally walked up to you and took it, didn't they? They didn't like wait for you to leave and steal your bike behind your back. They walked up and just took it from you. That's got to be, oh my gosh.
I was in 3rd grade, you know, so I'm like you know, I look at 3rd graders like babies. And right near my house was an apartment complex known for bikes being stolen, but never would I imagine somebody's going to take it in front of you during broad daylight. So there was like 8 or 10 of us playing football on the field. And my bike was in front of one of the apartments of one of the houses of the kid upside down. And 2 kids pull up on one bike, you know, one kid sitting on the bike. He just walks up on the bike, flips it over. He zips out and he goes right through the middle of the field. He's like, get out of my way, boy. And they were, I don't know how big they were, but as an 8-year-old, I'm looking at them like they were monsters. And none of us did anything. We froze, you know, a bunch of 8-year-old kids. I may have even been, no, it was probably the winter. So yeah, I probably just turned 8 because I had a late birthday. But, you know, I don't know. At 8 years old, the hardest, you know, what's the toughest thing is like, it reminds me, You know, my son plays baseball. The hardest thing about baseball is not watching a kid strike out or anything. Hardest thing was explaining to my son that when he's on another team, if a dad is coaching and he's sitting a lot, that's like adults might even screw you over. That's like the worst thing I had to like explain to my son, like him trying to wonder like why if he hits the ball far and catches the ball, but the coach's son strikes out and throws a fit, never sits out. I have to explain to, you know, a baby that there's evil people out there. And, you know, it might sound a little crazy, but I think we get to see it a lot with social media, right? You get to see all the things happening out there. That should inspire people to be strong and capable. You know, I know we're harping on the calisthenics, but calisthenics is the thing I talk to all the athletes about. So in the summer, I always train the incoming freshmen, and they're all weak. It's, you know, 50% of them cannot do one proper push-up. And it's like, guys, you're playing football. You're going to play soccer. How are you going to get off the ground during the game?
Right.
You literally have to do a push-up. But I told them, I go, we can't lift you up. And I said, you don't need a strength coach to do push-ups. You could do it on your own. You could do it on the floor. I say they're so expensive, they're free. And when push-ups are done correctly, you know, it could actually even become like a leg exercise because you're kind of flexing your legs. You know, I don't like to use the word core. I'm more like trunk, but your core has to be locked in because your abs should be flat, not sagging. And so that to me, even a mom texted me. I can't pull it up on this. She texted me because her son joined the underground strength gym. He did a trial on Monday. And she said he like wrote down bodyweight exercises on paper and put it on the refrigerator. You know? Probably put down squats, push-ups, lunges. Because I told him you're going to wake up and you do 5 reps of each. You're going to come home from school. Well, now it's summertime. I said you're going to come home in the afternoon or at lunch, 5 of each. Then after dinner, 5 each. Then at night. I go, you're going to be doing 20 a day. You do squat, lunge, push-up, 5 each. Take you not even a minute. So I said it'll take you 3 or 4 minutes a day. I go, you'll have done 20 in a day. 20 times 7 is what? 140. So you're going to do 140 in a week, 280 in 2 weeks. You know, by the end of the month, you're at 560. You know, by the end of the year, you're past 6,000 reps if all you do is 5 at a time.
Yeah.
And, you know, what's interesting is like you and I now we're like, quote unquote, a little bit older. And I think it's actually healthy to do kind of these micro workouts rather than I'm working out for 1 hour. And then the rest of the day is, what is the rest of your day? Sitting, you know, working in an office or stuck behind a computer. It's better to do a little bit in the morning, do a little bit of activity later, like a lot of that micro dosing. And I have a friend that works with Army Special Forces, Delta Force, you know, like one of the best in the world, if not the best. I know there's always an argument of who's the best, the Navy, Delta. But he's like, I do a lot of microdosing with them because they're constantly doing training of some sort. He's like, so we don't often have like an hour of training time blocked off for them. They might have an hour to get lunch. So they'll come here for 15 minutes, go and eat. Then they might finish the day and come back for another 15 minutes. And I do more microdosing. And he said he likes to use bodyweight and kettlebells for the microdosing, which I give that same advice to adults who are busy. One guy emailed me. He's a new dad. They just had a baby. I said, keep one kettlebell somewhere in the house. So you walk by the kettlebell, you might do 10 swings. You might do a goblet squat curl. You might do 10 snatches. You know, throughout your day, you could sneak in pull-ups, push-ups. Dips, I think, are a little bit tough on the shoulders without a warm-up. You know, so you got that pull-up mechanism. You got rings, recline round. You mentioned isometrics. You know, I've been pushing isometrics a lot because they are good for building tendon and ligament strength. So athletes need that very much so. They also need it to recover from injury. It's been researched that it improves recovery rates. I don't know what I've seen, but it is a significant increase of speed to recovery. And as we get older, like your body starts to kind of break down easier. So I do everything I can to get strong. So I incorporate isometrics more than ever these past few years because athletes are injured more than ever. And I've also found that it helps. Like I have it, I was just writing the workout for the freshmen for tomorrow. And one of the exercises is isometric lunge hold. So I'm going to teach them. You're going to get, a little bit lower than a half lunge. Your knee will be an inch or two above the ground. And you're going to hold that for 15 seconds, switch for 15 seconds. But you could really push it for a minute or several minutes. But high school kids, they get a little bit bored and you need to move them around. So I find ways to microdose it with them, and they get stronger by holding the position.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, those two things, the microdosing and the isometrics, those have become tried and true staples of everything I've been doing lately. One of the straps back there is an ISO trainer. It enhances the isometrics, basically like if you're in a lunge, so you can run the strap under your foot and you're grabbing onto the handles so you can add just that much more resistance to the muscles that you're using. And everybody has the same reaction the first time they do it, is they'll get down into that lunge position and they'll be like, okay, yeah, this is challenging. This is hard. I'm like, good. Now try to stand up against that strap. And of course they can't, but they try. And immediately the look on their face is like, holy mother of God, like what sorcery is this? My leg is going absolutely crazy. Oh my gosh, it's cramping up. I'm like, yeah, it's that easy to work the muscle that hard. And it really helps a lot, funny enough, with the athleticism and the explosiveness that especially older adults tend to lose out on as we get older. They lose that power, they lose that stability. But the isometrics are wonderful for that. And again, the microdose, just do this once or twice a day for like 10 seconds each. It'll totally transform how your legs feel and perform underneath you.
Yeah, it's funny because it sounds like so little. Like it's not like, 10 seconds here, 20 seconds there. But the key is just that regular activity of the body. But yeah, isometrics, real interesting how that is the way. Like we have a football player who's been going to a lot of camps for the colleges to look at him. And he's a running back, a wide receiver. So he's doing sprinting, cut, turn, put on the brakes. He's like, I went to the doctor. Of course, the doctor says Osgood-Schlatter's and patella tendon syndrome. I'm like, that's kind of like doctors have kind of these blanket statements. Maybe it's true. But I said, okay, you need to do isometric work and we need to do stuff for your posterior chain. So we got to do back extensions, back extension holds, trap bar deadlift, holding in the middle or down with a slow eccentric. The doctor recommended to him leg presses. And it's like, bro, we don't even have a leg press. And I said, if you do a squat or deadlift, it's a standing leg press. Like I just tried to keep the word leg press in there to get him to believe. But listen, a lot of doctors, not all, but many doctors are simply not experts in physical fitness at all. They kind of, there's a book out called Don't Let Your Doctor Kill You. And by a doctor. And this doctor, when she was going through medical school and residency, she said they were trained. What the other senior doctor said was, if let's say I was the doctor, you were the patient, I was told, do not make an emotional connection with Matt Schifferly. Just treat Matt's shoulder, treat his knee. Don't start, Matt, you're from Colorado. I'm from Colorado. Now I feel bad. And I'm going to no, give Matt the medicine for his knee. Give him the shot for his knee. You're treating his knee. It's a knee, period. End of story. And she's like, I did not like that. I did not feel good at that. I wanted to understand where was some of this, pain or disease or illness coming from. And so she wrote that book. And look, you write a book like that, you get blacklisted from the community, a medical community. I mean, look now what happened, with COVID. So many
Keep going. I got to just plug in my computer real quick, Zach.
Yeah.
For some reason, my battery's getting drained super fast. Keep going.
Too much awesomeness. So I think a lot of doctors, I think doctors were getting told they will, lose their medical practice license if they weren't encouraging, the COVID vaccine. So it's interesting. Like a lot of doctors, look, they're experts in surgery or treating with some sort of a shot or pill, whereas we are experts in fixing and healing through movement, through strength training. Strength training is, a myriad of different things. So, yeah, interesting to hear that the kid was told to leg press. I said, hey, back extensions, slow motion eccentric, trap bar deadlift, slow eccentric, holding mid-range position or hold above or below the area of pain, and lunge ISO holds. And that's what's interesting too, is like as a strength coach, you need some kind of foundational, I don't even know if this is a proper word, like prehab rehab knowledge, because everybody is showing up with some sort of like, this hurts, that hurts, this doesn't feel right, my shoulder doesn't feel good here. Okay, I had a freshman say that, my shoulder doesn't feel good here. All right, what did you do yesterday after we lifted? Did you go to the gym? Did you do extra work? Nope, I just did push-ups throughout the day. I was like, okay, what exercise bothers you? He said the floor press. I said, all right, so for the floor presses today, we're going to skip them. Did the push-ups hurt? No. Okay, you're going to do push-ups, and at the end of your push-ups, you're going to do a 10-second hold. You could do the top, the middle, or an inch from the floor, whatever doesn't hurt. And at the end of the workout, and also we snuck in a lot of dead hangs, which is isometrics on the grip, but it opens the shoulder. It's traction on your shoulder and back. He's like, yeah, my shoulder doesn't hurt anymore. Now, did the isometrics fix it? I don't know. Did the blood flow help? I don't know. But, today, dumbbell floor press didn't feel good for him. Normally that feels good for people because it's a limited range of motion. We go neutral grip. But I'm like I am a trustee of the isometrics. I'm going to throw them in. We have it in our warm-ups. So adults, for sure, like you said, it helps bring back that strength and power. And I think it's also not intimidating for newcomers who maybe don't have the balance. Lunges, we think, I don't want to say we, but coaches out there that haven't had enough experience, they over assume what somebody's capable of. They think everybody could do a lunge. No. And that might scare people to actually step and push back and the whole balance and power beyond it. Hey, no problem. Come right inside this squat rack or hold on to these straps. Put your leg back a little bit. Bend both knees 2 to 3 inches for me. All right. You feel good there? Hold that for 10 seconds. Good. Did 10 seconds each leg. Next set, let's go 15 or 20 seconds. Okay. Third set. How long do you think you want to go for? You want to try 30 seconds? Yeah, all right, I'll go 30. No, I don't feel so good. I don't know. I'll go 20. I think I could do 45 seconds. All right, go for it. Here we go. So I'll give them a little, option, a little bit of a choice. But isometrics can be increased by going weighted. So, I'm thinking of Jim Wendler. I don't know if you follow Jim at all, but Jim doesn't even lift weights anymore. He does all body weight. He does.
Wow, that I did not know. I followed Jim, but that apparently I need to catch back up with him.
Yep. He, for years now, he's been basically doing like half a Murph twice a day. So instead of running, he does the air dyne, puts on a vest, I think a 40, and he'll do squats, lunges, push-ups, or he'll do, and he does like, 150 squats or 200 squats, 100 push-ups, 50 pull-ups. He'll sometimes do it twice a day. He's like, Zach, my arms are always pumped. I just feel leaner. But I'll have our advanced lifters at my gym do lunge iso holds with heavy dumbbells, like 90-pound dumbbells in each hand. That changes things. And Cal Dietz, he's in Minnesota. He incorporates isometrics in his program called Triphasic. Oh, no, he does overcoming isometrics. So he's like pulling. So a barbell that's kind of locked in somewhere, pulling it, or a split squat, pulling it. So he doesn't just do holding of the position. He does the overcoming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's always what I've been a big fan of. One of the isometric challenges that I had way back in the day, I used to work at this one gym, and I always had the late shift, and it was not a very popular gym. So it'd be like 2 people in the whole thing, like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night when I was working there. But we'd have these guys come in and we just hang out. You know, I wasn't really working, you know, as we just hang out, we'd give each other these challenges. And one of the ones that I still remember was hold the top of a pull-up for a minute.
Flexed arm hang.
Yeah. And it was the same every time someone tried it. They'd get up there and they'd be like, oh, okay, I got this. And in about 5 seconds, their look on their face would just, oh, dear Lord. Because when you're doing pull-ups, you're there for like maybe half a second, maybe a quarter of a second. So 5 seconds feels like an eternity. And they're like, you're telling me I've got to do this for a minute? But the thing is, we always could make it because it was such a great way to test that resiliency of the mind of how well can you do this, even though everything in the back of your head is saying this, I've got to stop. There's no way, but can you keep doing it? And everyone always would. It took them a few tries, but they could always do it.
You got to like Jedi mind trick yourself into enjoying it. With my wrestlers, I will incorporate like what you were saying. You could bang out the pull-ups. So I might say, all right, we're doing pull-ups. We're mixing the grips. We're doing weighted pull-ups. Well, now you're going to do a pull-up, but at the top, you're going to go for a 3 count. If you're a killer, you're going to do a 5 count. Then you're going to lower yourself and go back up. Somebody who could normally do 6 to 8 reps is down to 2 or 3 reps. We could do it also on the recline row. We use the rings on the recline row, but that holding, it gets you strong. Do you know who popularized isometrics in America?
Well, I mean, the York isometric rack was a big thing back in the day. Bob Hoffman, you know, I actually saw one of those in a home one time, and I thought that's the worst squat rack I'd ever seen, not realizing what it was. But yeah, I remember that was really big back in the day.
I think he has, you could probably find it on eBay. I have some Bob Hoffman books, right? They're all kind of piled up. You see these books here?
Yep.
All these, it probably would be in this one, Strength and Development, but I believe he has a book dedicated to isometrics. Maybe I'm wrong. Have to look it up. But, you know, now you're on the West Coast, but you could still find in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, older men, or maybe these men passed away. And now it's like the son or daughter selling their dad's old squat rack. And they like, oh, I don't know what this thing is. I never saw this piece of junk. Actually, no, it's a York isometric rack. And I saw somebody selling one recently on Facebook for $75. I was like, I should buy it. You know, of course, I have no room for it, but it's like I'm like those guys, the American Pickers, except I'm American Pickers for strength training equipment.
Yes. Oh, man, the stuff that you can run across, that's just amazing. I remember the old equipment company, Marcy, incorporate isometric racks in their weight machines. One of the classic Bruce Lee books, Tuttle Publishing, came out with a bunch of books all about his training methods. And there's one, I think it was called Expressing the Human Body. And it was all about Bruce Lee's strength and conditioning methods. And the funny story is,
who put the book out, Matt? Marcy did, or
I think it's Tuttle or Turtle Publishing.
Yeah. What's it called? I'll write that down.
Expressing the Human Body. Unusual title, but it went really more into the depth of what was Bruce Lee's conditioning methods like. And he had this Marcy, kind of like a universal machine, but it was a universal machine kind of combined with an isometric rack where it had the 4 pins so you could push up against the pins and stuff.
You know what's...
And
so you're in Colorado. Marcy equipment was made in California, which makes sense because Bruce Lee was in San Francisco, right? Palo Alto.
That area, the Bay Area. Yep.
Yeah, I bet you could find some interesting used stuff in the California, Colorado. I'm not so good with my geography. What's the state that's neighboring you? Nevada?
Nevada, yeah.
Utah? And, you know, that kind of equipment, Jack Lane also had, maybe he used the universal machine. But it's interesting. Now that I've gotten older, I'm like, man, I would get one of those universal machines, the one that was in my high school back in the 80s with the leg press, the machine bench press. I saw an old football video from the NFL, and they were training on those machines, except instead of it pressing at the same time, Matt, the stacks were parallel to each other, but they were unilateral, individual. So look, I would be like, press, press, press. I posted on my Instagram a couple months ago. I can't remember what team it was, but it was great. And there's old photos of football teams. Their quote unquote weight room was outdoors. So I'm assuming it was like West Coast teams. They had like multiple isometric racks, and they just trained outside. And of course, you know, Herschel Walker, even though Herschel Walker wasn't in the NFL, he was in that league that Donald Trump owned. I think it was called the AFL or UFL, like American Football League or United Football. But, you know, Herschel Walker was calisthenics and sprints, but he did high volume and high repetition, like very piston-like calisthenics. Whereas I wonder, like, you know, knowing what he knows now and just with the equipment, would he do weighted pull-ups and weighted push-ups and things like that? Because not everybody has the strength to do those high reps, but I think eventually you got to add weight to break things up. You know, I created that Bodyweight bodybuilding program, and I basically modified the West Side Barbell / conjugate method, which like max effort, dynamic effort, and then repetition method is like high reps for building muscle. And then I create like a freestyle day where you got to walk on your hands, get outside, go on the monkey bars. It had to be training that really forced your body to move as a unit and kind of move like an animal. Coach Ethan Reeve, who was the strength coach at Wake Forest for 19 years for football, he sent me a video a couple weeks ago on Facebook of gorillas like wrestling and playing and chasing each other. He's like, I study how these apes and gorillas move and try to mimic it in our training. He's like, so what did we do? We used monkey bars. We climbed ropes. We jumped on things. We jumped over things to build athleticism. We tumbled. We wrestled. So when he would train football players, he would implement a lot of that kind of wrestling style work, which now we see strength coaches trying to implement grappling into football skills, where I always tell football players, hey, join the wrestling team. You know, you think you're not going to be strength training. Well, guys, you're lifting weights. You're lifting a human weight, nothing harder than that. That gets you strong. So I thought it was cool that Coach Reeve was talking about that stuff. And now with social media, we've seen people really show their very unique backyard gyms that look like playgrounds and things like that. I would be up for doing something like that, like building. I'd have to hire a welder, have to hire my buddy Dean, say, Dean, make me parallel bars so I could walk on my hands. The elementary school I used to teach at in Edison had parallel bars. It had like a pull-up area with rings, so you could kind of climb across the rings. We had monkey bars that went like this, kind of up and then down.
Okay? Oh, yeah. Like an A-frame.
Yeah, exactly. And now, you know, you see companies making it like Sorinex. They make it, they call it a bridge, but you never see people using them. It's like this showpiece, but nobody's using them. You know who would use them? You need to put them inside of wrestling rooms where the wrestlers can begin that kind of training. So, or they would like incorporate it into their warm-up. Because when you do all that like climbing and hanging, your grip gets so strong and your shoulders are healthy because you're constantly tractioning them out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, I know they have those like climbing gyms, probably a lot of them by you, right? Climbing gyms.
Oh yeah. Ton of them.
Do those people have back problems and shoulder problems? They do not, because of their abs and their flexibility of the hips and legs. And it just goes to show you, like, the answer is oftentimes in your own body. You know, just having a conversation is inspiring me, because today at my gym, I have monkey bars, but we don't have a whole lot of room. I think we have 5 poles. So we don't just walk like across them. We get this way, boom, shimmy forward, shimmy back, shimmy forward, shimmy back. You might start with your elbows bent, which is isometrics on the biceps, grip, and shoulders. Then eventually your arms are straight and you're kind of reaching and grabbing, almost like, you know, Tarzan would do from one vine to the next.
Yeah.
And you can't measure it like, oh, did I bench press more, squat more? You can't really measure. You could measure how long you do it and whatnot, but it gets people strong. There's no denying it.
Yeah, I got you're mentioning all these toys, and one of the things coming back, you know, was mentioning that the mini incline at Philip S. Morris Park. You know, that's great, the mini incline, but at the base a couple of years ago, they built this massive, like, American Ninja Warrior kind of calisthenics playground. It's really big, and it's got all of that stuff. It's got ropes, it's got the bridge, it's got monkey bars, it's got all kinds of fun toys to play with, parallel bars you can walk on, all that stuff.
Down. They took it down, or it's still there?
Nope, it's still there. They built it, and then the pandemic hit, and they roped it all off, and then it opened back up once the lockdowns were released.
How did the ropes get, like, do they deteriorate with the weather?
No, because out here, I mean, Colorado is really sunny and it's really dry. When we get rain, we get rain, but we've got over 300 days of sun a year out here. So technically, we're high desert as far as an ecosystem goes. So it's pretty. I mean, they've got some makeshift suspension straps there, and they get kind of beat up, but the ropes are holding up great.
That's awesome that done it, because, you know, I remember in the school district I taught at in the early 2000s, you know, that's when I started getting into the strength and conditioning. So my friend and I would take a sled, a prowler, a sandbag, a couple of kettlebells. We'd go to a playground at these elementary schools so we could use the monkey bars, the parallel bars. Well, I remember at one of the schools, somebody got hurt, and they erected the whole playground system. All you saw was mulch. They ripped the friggin' thing out.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I remember like a girl at the school broke her hand, and the principal says to me, I think I'm going to take it down. I said, the exact reason you should never take it down is because these kids have to learn to move. Like, somebody was on the monkey bars, and when they let go and landed on their feet, instead of like catching in a squat, they like planted their, like a Spider-Man landing, how he lands and puts his hands down. Girl did that, and I think broke her wrist. And I said, they got to learn how to absorb through the legs, not the hands, right? But what's the first answer? Take it all down. Yeah. And then we have kids, you know, that are entering high school that can't do a push-up. Yeah. You know, if you're in athletics, you have to do that yourself. Or if you're a coach in a recreation level, you should be teaching the kids how to do push-ups. Yep.
Absolutely. They've got to learn to move more than anything else. We've got, yesterday I was training a guy in his garage, and his son came out, and his son was all like, oh, can I, you know, play with you guys? He thought we were playing around. And I'm like, yeah, sure. Come on in. And he's probably like 12, maybe 11, 12. And, you know, very simple things, giving him some crawling movements, some squats, some lunges, nothing fancy and stuff. And he's moving okay. He's pretty good, athletic. And I was like, so you play sports? You do this stuff? And he's like, no, they don't do this in the schools at all. Like, what is this called? A lunge? I'm like, oh my gosh.
Oh,
like,
wow.
Yeah.
Today, I had freshman soccer players who could not lunge. I'm like, you know, but look, my son too plays baseball, basketball. I would have hoped that the warm-up would have skipping, bear crawls, frog jumps, bear crawl. I like to do the lateral push-up walk.
Yep.
They don't do any of that. Well, it's like, yo, you want kids to throw the ball 80 miles an hour, but they can't do a push-up? Like, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to understand that does not add up in a healthy manner. That's not safe for
Yeah.
to be able to whip a ball that fast, but they can't do a push-up.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a tough world. It's like, on one hand, we've got so much more than when I was growing up. Because when I was growing up, I had nothing. I had no gyms, no access to anything. And I was still finding, how do I still work out? How do I still do something? And now it's like, with the internet and social media, and here in Colorado, we got gyms on every corner. We've got so much more than before. And yet we're even losing ground somehow.
Yeah. I think
yeah,
if we look around, you know, I don't know what the research says and blah, 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 but I don't need research. Like, I tell people, look, I went to the Apple store. I'm in there for like 3 hours getting this whole phone fixed up. You know, hundreds, 1,000+ people walked in and out of that store. Not one of them, man or woman, looked like they could do a push-up. That's normal people. We think, because we're so into this, Matt, that we are normal. Oh, everybody's into this. Oh, there's so many people watching my video and commenting. You know, the country has I don't know how many billions of people, but you need to go to where the masses are. Go to a concert, go to a mall, go to a supermarket. That's your everyday people.
Yeah.
And it's like, even our athletes forget, why don't our athletes do push-ups? Because the people coaching these sports, for some reason, are not doing it. I think I'm like 10 years or more than that older than you. I'm 47, but as a kid, I remember in the 80s, the warm-up was jumping jacks, push-ups, sit-ups, running. Those things don't get done anymore. They're just like, oh, it's a baseball warm-up. Start throwing the ball to each other. No. Let's jog down and back. Let's skip down and back. Let's side shuffle down and back. Let's lunge down and back. Let's do some spring jumps, pogo jumps. Let's walk on our hands down and back. Okay, now we could start. Let's do cartwheels. What are you doing in a cartwheel? You're in a handstand. You're strengthening the shoulders, the elbows, the triceps. You're building hip flexibility, groin mobility. I mean, but look, kids can't do push-ups, and here I am talking about doing other things. Our warm-up at my gym is big time surrounded with calisthenics. Last year I had a coach, who was interning. I wouldn't say he was a coach. He was interning. And, I said to him after he was, given these kind of like every week, your assignment is like create a different workout. And I give them, hey, give me a workout for a middle school baseball player who's been here for 30 days. Give me a workout for an in-season basketball player who's been here 2 years. Give me, 2 weeks. And there's no body weight. And I said, because you don't value body weight training, these kids won't buy in. He was overweight. He was fat. Okay. That's what I'm saying. He was fat.
Yeah.
I said, can you do a pull-up? He's like, probably not. I said, you're 19 or if you can't do pull-ups at that age, that's not good. And, I had to kind of remind myself, the underground strength gym, live the code 365 is about a high standard of work ethic and excellence and putting yourself through it. If you want to coach others, don't talk about it, be about it. And so I said, listen, I'm going to cut you from this internship for the next year. I think you should immerse yourself in training. I don't know if you listened, didn't listen, but that's the bottom line is you got to live this. And a big part of my certifications is always body weight training, because I could go to an isometric push-up hold into somebody holding your ankles doing a plyo push-up wheelbarrow. Like we could make it as advanced and as crazy as we want, but the real power comes from those basics, really getting good at those basics. And I get excited on the basics. I don't know why I get excited about it.
Yeah. Well, it's just where you get the most direct stimulus to what you want. It's hitting the nail right on the head. If you're thirsty, you drink water. Like, what about this fancy electrolyte? It's like water, like as more direct as possible.
I'm so tired. What stretches should I do? Well, go to bed an hour early. Okay.
Yeah.
At least let's get 9 hours of sleep. You're sleeping 7, get 9 hours sleep. I remember reading Man, it may have been Bill Pearl. It may have been Chuck Sipes, one of the golden era, one of the silver era bodybuilders. And in the program, it was 9 hours of sleep. Nope, it was Steve Reeves. Steve Reeves.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Steve Reeves was like, go to bed at 9 p.m., wake up at 7 a.m. That's like 10 hours of sleep. Oh, that's how you get strong. You sleep. Oh, I thought I stay up on my phone till 1 a.m. and then wake up at 6 a.m. for practice. That's why you don't get strong. That's also, this poor lifestyle habits is going to massively bring about like, illness and disease. I think when you're running your body down, like cancer can live in you and all this food, I'd be interested to hear where you guys get your food from, if you're going to like a farm or what you're doing out there.
We have a lot of local stuff here. Even if you go to King Supers, the local grocery stores here, a lot of our food is very local. It's funny how people out here, they take it for granted. But when I was growing up in Vermont, we don't have much of a growing season there. So when the summertime would hit, farmers markets were really big. Like, oh my gosh, we can get local produce. This is amazing. But out here, because one, Denver's got a very long growing season, but two, we've got amazing like infrastructure connectivity as far as being able to import things really quick. There's a sushi restaurant that I like to frequent. It's not cheap, but they'll literally put a fish down in front of you and be like, that fish was in Japan 7 hours ago or something crazy like that. Yeah, it's like you can get food really good, really cheap, not so much cheap, but really, really fresh out here. And that's the standard. That is normal. I don't think, obviously we're not growing bananas out here or anything, but you go into the supermarkets and half the meat came from 50 miles of here and stuff. And that's just normal supermarket. That's not a, super special one.
Yeah. Speaking of that, when I was at a event at Sorinex called Winter Strong, one of the guys has, like a massive farm. It's called, I think, Primal Meats. He's somewhere in Colorado. Yeah. Primal. Meats. So all, farm raised meats.
Yeah. Yeah. That stuff is really big out here. It's really, really prevalent. And it's not hard to find at all. Just the local thoroughfare here in Denver, 38th Street, we've got like 3 specialty grocery stores. That's all local, all farm raised, farm to table kind of stuff. That's on one street. So like you were saying before, like we think this is normal out here.
Yeah.
We think that kind of thing is normal, but you step outside of Colorado when I visit my parents on the East Coast, and it's like, wow, holy smokes, this is what you guys call a cheeseburger out here. This is where your meat's from. Like, wow, that is not what I'm used to.
You get to taste the difference. So during COVID, my wife and I started going to a farm in Pennsylvania, and you could see the cows. And you could see cows further, there's cows further than your eyes could see. They have so much property. They rotate all the animals to different parts. And I don't buy meats from supermarkets. I get a lot of ground beef from this farm. And I have a bunch of like hens, I guess. So I got to like look at how to bake them and baste them before I bake them. But the quality and the richness, you can taste it. And then when you look at the cows, his cows are not fat. They got all this room to move. They're almost like muscular looking. Whereas I was about 2 summers ago, my son had Cooperstown, New York baseball. And I was like, 30 minutes away. So I stayed in a hotel 30 minutes away. And when I drove past like a cow farm. And they're, like this. They're squeezed together like books on a bookshelf. And I was like, oh shit, that's what goes into the supermarkets. These cows that are just overfed and they literally have nowhere to move. Nowhere.
And then you wonder why the meat is so tough.
Disgusting. And so, I have 2 high school kids. My son will be in high school this fall. But, a lot of boys have boobs and beer bellies, and they don't drink beer, and they're not women, but they have breasts. And it's like, listen, of course, a lack of strength training and a lack of muscle is the problem. But all that like hormone infested meat is killing this younger generation, killing them. It's horrible.
And it's not even meat at this point. I mean, it's one thing to get a steak from a grocery store, and even if it's not, it's still steak. But when they're like, you eat meat, it's like, yeah, I eat like Slim Jims, and stuff like, it's like your meat's coming not from a grocery store, it's coming from 7-Eleven. Like, this is not, does it even call meat at that point?
I heard somebody long ago say, like, we call that a red light food. If it's in like a package, a wrapper, like, that's probably a red light food. A green light food is something that is expiring soon. It's a fruit, it's a vegetable, it's meat, and it's something that's not like having, look at some milk will expire, 60 days from now. I'm like,
60 days.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how is that? Yeah. How does that make sense? So when I go to the Pennsylvania farmer, I buy raw milk. I don't really drink too much milk, but my son will drink the raw milk. And I buy my eggs from a nearby town, and they put the eggs in front of the house at the end of the driveway in that big, like, box, whatever they call it. And you see all the chickens in the front of their house running all over the place. And then when they want to go back into their hen, they do. They're legitimate free range. Whereas I think the definition of free range is something like 2 square feet of room to move. Maybe I'm thinking of it. But the definition of the eggs we're buying in the supermarkets, it's all like, they really bullshitted they twisted the words.
Yeah, I heard from someone saying that free range is technically that there's a window open, like in the building they're being kept in or something like that. It's like that. Or how does that work?
Or it's like an hour out of the day they have a certain. It's farmed. It's farming in a bad way. It sucks.
Yeah,
just like
all the labels. I swear half of the healthy food trends that come out there are just from companies that are looking for a loophole to get around, like, oh, if we say it's organic or we say it's like vegan or whatever, then we can make junk food to be whatever. We just got to slap this label on it and people will be convinced that it's healthy and good for them. Yeah. Regardless of like, what is the food actually made of? Like, no, we got a label on it. That means it's good for you.
The FDA has allowed a lot of, like, they've really tweaked the meaning. Organic used to mean something. Now organic might mean only, I'm just making shit up, only 5, non-organic substances, or we'll still call it organic. Those five, ingredients might be extremely dangerous for you, but hey, it met the definition of, up to 5, non-organic or whatever it is. But the more where the food's coming from, the better.
Absolutely. Yeah. And too, just knowing how it makes you feel too. Cause one of the things I worry about, Zach, is that we're making so much complacency about our health more of the normal. Like, it's normal to be tired all the time. It's normal to be sore. It's normal to be aches and pains. It's normal to be on 5 kinds of medications by the time you're 40. It feels like the standard is getting lower and lower these days. And now, like, I'm like you, I'm more middle-aged, and I meet new people out and they're like, wait, you're 45 and you don't have a belly, you don't have bad knees, you don't have 3 medications? I'm like, no. And they're like, oh my gosh. I'm like, how is that unusual now?
Because you're training regularly, I feel it makes you look 10 years younger. It's not odd to meet people, and then if you don't exercise, you look 10 to 12 years older. Easily. And a lot of things are kind of geographically influenced. Like, you're in Colorado, a very active state. I was up in North Jersey last Wednesday to do a certification for somebody, and I noticed all the dads were like built. You could tell they were all like into lifting. I live near the beach. I don't see too many dads that have muscles. They're kind of like dad bods. They surf. They're just chill, drinking, Friday, Saturday, Sunday during the day is the norm. So they're drinking 3 days out of the week. And I was like, man, just driving an hour and a half North Jersey changed what the adult men looked like. So the geographical location can influence you dramatically in a good or bad way.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's kind of like in some ways we're a product of our environment. We're a product of the people we hang out with.
Yes.
You know, it's the old idea, you're the product, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, or the 10 people you spend the most time with. So it's basically about establishing your own normal. Like what's normal in one person is totally unnormal for another. So you've got to look at your life and you've got to look at what you're doing and be like, what's the normal that I want? Because it's like a multi-universe thing. You go to one universe to another universe, and what's normal there is not normal in another place. It's the same thing here. You go to different places, you hang out with different people. For some people, it's normal to be buried under credit card debt. Other people, it's normal to have several $1 million in the bank. You know, it's what is normal. And then how do you establish a different level of normal for yourself so that it's what you want versus what you're settling for?
Yeah. And then, you know, if dads or parents ask me, hey, how do I get my kids into this exercise? I was like, oh, my kids have been seeing me do it since they were babies. You know, they've seen me climbing the rope in the garage. They've seen me sprinting up and down the street. They've seen me lifting weights. So they believed it was normal activity. They didn't think it was something that had to I had to tell them to do it. Now what's cool is like kind of trying to tell my son, like, listen, you have a baseball tournament this weekend. So when you go to the gym, you probably don't need to be, you know, trying to max out on your squats and do other, you know, crazy things. Yeah. It's a quality problem to have. They want to go and exercise more. Yep. So, you know, it's interesting to see where we are. It'll be interesting to see what this younger generation becomes health-wise, with not just the physical aspect, but the mental aspect. And Joe DeSena and I always said, kind of as a joke, but not really, we're like, we should open up a Spartan school. And to enter the doors, you have to do 30 burpees. So before you even come in, you do 30 burpees. Well, you know, the meaning behind that or the idea behind that is not like, oh, we're going to get you strong and fit. Kind of the idea is more what it does for you mentally, your emotions, your psychological, your self-concept. You just, man, I just did 30 burpees. I feel great. My heart is pumping. I got a pump going on. You know, I'm bending up and down, jumping. That's powerful. You know, there's people that don't do 30 burpees in a year. Forget about 30 burpees every day. Mm-hmm. And 30 burpees might take somebody 2 minutes, 3 minutes. I don't know. An average person, you do 1 burpee every 5 seconds, 20. So it would be 3. Yeah. You would be done in 3 minutes, 10 burpees a minute.
Yep. Yeah. Again, going back to, it doesn't have to be this big, long thing. I think a big barrier that a lot of people have is thinking that it's got to be this big deal. Like, I got to totally overhaul my diet. I got to work out in the gym 3 hours. I don't have the time. I don't have the energy. No, it's because you have this concept of what you think it's going to take, of being so much bigger than it really needs to be. But you get those 10 push-ups a day, you know, 5, you know, in the morning, 5 at night and stuff. That stuff adds up a hell of a lot faster than people think it does. Yeah. And I've done that with my martial arts training for years, where I have a little exercise I do every day, and it's not even 3-4 minutes most days. But that adds up big time.
I remember you telling me about this a while ago. I forgot you were martial. What's the style?
Taekwondo. And it's not much. I mean, I tell people, and that's the biggest hang up that I get across with people is, I'll tell them, well, just do this one thing, do this simple thing. It's so simple, it's complicated, as you always say, the simplest things. And people, it's the hardest thing for me to get across to people, because they're like, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. Thanks for the advice and stuff. And they think it's got to be big in order to be significant. And nothing's more significant than the small daily habits that we do.
Yeah, Stan Efforting, you know, with the vertical diet, his one thing was take a 10-minute walk after each meal. You know, or 20-minute walk after your last meal, dinner. 20 minutes, because it will significantly increase peristalsis, like help with utilizing the protein, carbs, and fats, and utilizing utilizing your nutrients versus I ate, I'm going to go sit on the couch.
Yeah.
Nope. Just take a 10-minute walk. I think he could, 10-minute walk. He didn't even say 20 minutes because he knew that 20 minutes would overwhelm people. I know if let's say I was not in the space, the fitness space, if I hired a coach, I'd be like, listen, I'll pay you the same amount of money that somebody pays you for an hour, but I need to train 30 to 40 minutes. I'll let you know when I get here if I got 40 minutes, but I need to get those same results done. I'd rather pay somebody more to get the same results in less time. Because now it's actually like I'm doing half the work, but getting twice the results essentially because I'm saving 30 minutes of time. Yeah. 30 minutes for me is really important. It could allow me to send out a newsletter. It could allow me to do a marketing piece for the gym. It's a lot of time for me. And so I don't want to say I never train for an hour. There's certainly times where I'm doing physical activity for an hour, but my training sessions in the gym are usually not too long. 35 minutes is like a pretty typical workout. Yeah.
Same. And speaking of time, Zach, I mean, I've been chatting your ear off almost a better part of 2 hours here. Holy smokes.
Destroyed us with the technical. I'm usually not a technical difficulty guy, and I got destroyed on technical difficulty today.
Oh, it's my fault, man. My old boss used to always call it Matt's technical vortex. Like, you don't ever go into like a nuclear power plant or anything like that, because the second you walk in that door, things are going to start shutting down and having problems. It's like, it's my thing. So I'll take the blame on that one, believe me. But Zach, I'm sorry we didn't get too much into your book, but folks listening, watching this, get this book. There's links down below. This is a book. I do have to give you a bit of a warning, though. Do not read this right before you go to bed at night, because it's going to get you so amped up and ready to rock and roll. The last chapter especially, I read it, and I'm like, I'm not sleeping for another hour and a half. I got to go for a run or something.
A lot of people told me that. I had a dad text message me, a dad, one of the kids. He's like, Dane, put down the book, and I started reading it. And 11 pages in, I was dressed and out to the garage for a workout. And everybody's been inspired by it. So that's been really cool because I don't know. I think the world needs the inspiration. And somehow I just put whatever was in my heart, I put it on paper. This book had to get published. And I'm excited, to hear you really love it. And there's people 20 years older than you and I reading it, 20 years younger reading it. There's teenagers reading it. It's been cool, man.
Yeah. Congratulations on the book, Zach. It's wonderful. I hope you sell 1 billion copies. I hope it puts a serious dent in the universe. But I know it's changing lives. It's changed mine for the better. And dear watcher, listener, if you read it, it will change yours for the better as well. Zach, any parting words of wisdom before we wrap things up here?
Man, I think we crushed it on the conversation of overall health. Of course, we spoke about body weight training. I think it was great, Matt. And you're right. It was overdue. So thanks to everybody for listening. And thank you for inviting me on your podcast. It's been awesome to see your success. Really cool.
Very good. Thank you very much, Zach. Again, folks, check out Zach's resources down below. Podcast, socials, programs, Bodyweight, bodybuilding we mentioned before. I've got it. I've used it before. Whenever I'm looking for ways to really spice up my training and just get really raw into the basics of what it takes to build muscle and strength with bodyweight training, check that program out as well. Highly, highly recommended. Zach, thanks again so much. And I will chat with you folks later. Till then, be fit and live free.